So for all of this time, I was like, I want to buy a house. I want to buy a house. I want to buy a house. Oh my gosh, there's a target, right? And so it felt really crappy to be taking action that in a way that contradicted what I was saying that I wanted. So now I was actually able to say, I want this thing, and then do the things that were going to help me get there.
This is Rebel Therapist, a podcast for entrepreneurs who are trained as therapists and who want to level up their businesses, make a bigger impact, feel fulfilled, and be very well paid. I'm your host, Annie Schusler. If you're listening to this on the day that it goes live, I want to invite you to join me tomorrow, May 17th, for a Q&A, a live Q&A, you and me, about creating your first program. I know you have a lot of questions. I know you have a lot of excitement, but also fear and doubt and overwhelm. So come and spend some time with me Wednesday, May 17th, 9 a.m. Pacific. And to sign up for that and get the Zoom link, you're going to go to rebeltherapist.me/question. rebeltherapist.me/question. Go ahead and sign up. Even if you can't make it live, if you sign up, you're going to get a recording of me answering questions about creating your first program, where to start, what to not even worry about when you're creating your first program. I can't wait to see you. All right, here's the episode. You ever wonder what's going on with the personal finances of entrepreneurs? Like, are they all just born wealthy? Or how are they taking these risks and making these investments to grow these businesses? My guest today is going to tell you how in a 1-year period, she was able to clear $25,000 of credit card debt and save $55,000 for a house. And she's going to really get into the nitty-gritty of it. And no, she didn't grow up wealthy. Meet Podge Thomas. Podge is a Notion consultant and people ops specialist, and she works with small business owners to build operational infrastructure through the lens of liberation and justice. And one of the businesses she has helped a ton is Rebel Therapist. And I am proud to call Podge a friend. And if you want to hear my other episode with Podge, you can go to episode 165. Let's jump right into our conversation about Podge's year of financial transformation. Podge Thomas, welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
So I want to talk about money and how you did some amazing things in a short period of time in your financial life. And when you told me about it, we talk a lot. And when you started telling me about it, I was like, hit pause. Can we do this on the podcast and hear all about it? And so that's what we're doing. So will you tell me again what you did? I think it was in a 1-year period, you said, that you made some huge changes and accomplished some big stuff. So what happened?
Yeah. So, and I just want to say the reason why we even got into this was because we hopped on a call together and I was like, can we talk about money? Because, and you were like, oh my gosh, I thought you would never ask. Because you have always been so transparent publicly on your podcast about making money. And even more than that, right? You do this annual, this is how much money I made last year, and this is how it breaks down. So I just want to thank you for that, because taking the stigma out of having conversations about both personal and business finances, I think is really important, especially now. So what happened? Well, what happened? In my relationship, my marriage was at odds with my partner. She has a background of being frugal, and I had at that time a pretty well-established habit of spending money as soon as I made it, sometimes ahead of time. So there was a big disconnect between us having conversations about our future, which included owning a home, right? Fostering children, going on vacations, and da-da-da-da-da. And what was not being talked about was like, well, Podge, how are we going to get there if you don't stop dropping $300 at Target every week, which was not even really that much of an exaggeration.
Yeah. How did it finally come up?
I think like a lot of relationships, things build until the conversation around it carries enough weight that whoever's sort of not pulling their weight is like, okay, I really am going to have to change now. Otherwise, this other person is just going to cut and run. Which, to be fair, like, I didn't think at that time that my partner was going to cut and run, but we're committed to our relationship being in a forward motion, meaning that we're growing and growing together. And this was something that was holding us back. And it was a conversation that we were sort of avoiding. So, that's essentially what happened. At some point we had a conversation and she was just like, yes, I would love to have all of these things as well. But I'm over here feeling like I can't spend any money at all on anything, even when I do need something. And then you're just out there willy-nilly buying whatever you want to. And I was like, yeah, I don't really have a solid argument against that.
What was that moment like when you got really honest with yourself and said, like, I don't have an argument, like, you're right? It makes me panic thinking about that moment. Like, was it scary or were you just ready for it?
I think I was just ready for it because you know what? And this is just sort of our journey together as a couple, that at about the 5-year mark, there was like a big come to Jesus moment where she was actually really ready. This is before we got married, really ready to jump ship. She was just like, all of this is not working for me. Like, I had to make a lot of changes, big, deep, sort of structural changes. And she did as well, but it was sort of my behavior that was more obvious. My poor habits, baggage, trauma that was more recognizable on the outside. So, we had gone into therapy. We spent a year in therapy sort of together and separately. And that was that was a massive turning point for us. So since then, any of those big moments, those big conversations that we've had to have not felt anywhere near that bad. And so sometimes, and I think this probably wasn't an exception, those conversations can be tinged with some shame. I'm broken. Something's wrong with me. Yeah.
So the 5-year mark and that big come to Jesus moment or process that you had, it sounds like that got you into sort of a radically honest relationship with each other.
Yes, that's 100% true. There are very few things that we aren't willing to talk about. We can still fall back into a habit of avoiding something. That still happens, but how that then exhibits itself in our daily interactions is so obvious that it doesn't go on for too long, right? We'll eventually just start to drift apart, and we'll both feel that. We both like being connected to each other in more of an intimate way. So when that starts to feel off, one of us within, probably weeks will be like, hey, what's going on? And it doesn't take much sort of digging to get there. And so this was one of those, and it's not like we'd never had that conversation before, but I think that before that year that, we had this big radical change financially, we had just dealt with things that were bigger than that, right? You sort of start with the really, really big infrastructural problems, and then you're peeling back the layers. So the stuff that comes up now is the most uncomfortable stuff, but it's like, it would have been like number 10 on the list 5 years ago, right? But now it's number 1 because we sort of dealt with everything before it.
And you have that muscle that you know how to do it. You can like return to that way of communicating.
Yeah. We'll see when she listens to this if she actually agrees with my assessment. We tell the story in different ways, to be sure.
Yeah. That's interesting. I'll just bookmark for one of our future conversations that, like, I think Ames and I, my spouse, have we've been together for 20 years. And I think we thought we were being radically honest, but I think we have finally stepped into another layer of radical honesty this year. So I'm really identifying with what you're saying.
And you're that's exactly it, right? Because I don't think it's that you weren't being radically honest before. It's just that what looked like radical honesty before is not what it looks like now. That we peel back those layers, that it gets deeper, right? And I think that sometimes we look back and we go, well, we weren't doing it right before. And I really believe that we were doing it right before because it was what we had the capacity to do. We were putting maximum effort into it. But years go by, we learn more about ourselves. We learn more about each other. And when we're committed to growing and moving forward, though the way that we bring that radical honesty, the way that we have those conversations, it just gets better. We get better. Like, I feel like we're like relationship athletes. Sometimes we actually just sit around and brag about how good our relationship is. And how we think that like everybody is jealous of our amazing relationship. Everybody wants what we have. Like, we literally are relationship goals, as the kids say.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Okay, so what happened that year?
So what happened that year was, we sort of had this conversation. So I'm kind of ready. I'm ripe to make a change. And a mutual friend of ours, Hillary Ray, had been working with somebody, a financial coach, in order to heal some of her own money trauma. And she talked to me about him. And so I reached out to him and ended up hiring him. And this is why I know it was a year long, because it was a 12-month long engagement. So that's how I'm able to tell this is exactly how much time we took to, save this much money. And that first step was, and his name is Dylan. I don't remember his last name.
We'll stick it in the show notes.
Yes, Snowden. Dylan Snowden is his name. And
was it expensive? I'm asking this because I'm thinking about, like, you had to make a big decision about working with someone about money and then paying money to do it.
That's right. That was a concern for me. I was like, how am I going to pay this person? Like, how can I justify paying this person money to help me save money?
Yes.
That doesn't make any sense. And I'm the type of person who, first of all, I almost never have regrets. I'm just not a regretful person. So if I make a decision and it turns out not to work out, I just go, okay, so what did I learn from that? And I move on. So I wasn't worried about it going belly up. And I had this recommendation from Hillary, and I just trusted that he was competent enough that it somehow made sense, even though mathematically it perhaps didn't. And was it expensive? And I remember the first few months, the way that he structures it, and I don't remember exactly, and I certainly don't want to quote his prices. I'm sure they're different now. This was 4 years ago, maybe. But This
is pre-pandemic?
No, it wasn't. It wasn't pre-pandemic, because the pandemic is when I met you and met Hillary at the same time, was 2020.
Oh, yeah.
So it must have been sometime during the pandemic. It must have been it must have been 2020 for about 12 months. We bought a house in 2021, in the summer of 2021. So the first few months were more, and then it drops down. And I think in the first few months I met him more regularly, like maybe twice a month, for the first 4 months or something, to kind of do that deep work and make sure that I was doing all the things I was supposed to be doing, and he was keeping an eye on me. And then after that, the cadence dropped and the monthly price dropped.
So were you working with him together with your partner?
I was working with him separately, although he does work with people together.
Oh, but it was just you.
It was just me. And why was that? Part of it was a financial decision, because working together would have been more expensive. And honestly, we just didn't have the budget for that. And the other reason was because I was the one that really needed to be making the changes. And so it sort of made sense. And then I was kind of pulling her in. So he had me doing budgeting. So she and I would do that together, but I was the one actually working with him. And honestly, the first, I really thought that he was going to come in and just be like, stop everything, stop what you're doing, put the credit cards down, step away.
We hear that a lot. We hear that from a lot of the big names, like cut up all your cards, like debt diet, like all these kinds of things. What was it instead?
Just spend normally for a month and track it, and then we'll really see what's going on. And it wasn't to shame me. It was so that I could see where my money was going, so that I could empower myself to make different choices. Because his philosophy is, you can have whatever you want, right? However, if you want this thing over here, if you want a vacation, then something else is probably going to have to give. Saving for the house may not be a possibility if saving for the vacation is more important, right? Spending less at Target might be necessary so that you can have this house because that's something that you want more. So he never told me, like, you shouldn't be spending $1,000 on eating out every month, even though that's not what was happening. He just said to me, does this make sense? Like, is this what you want? Is it in line with your goals? And our big goal was we wanted to save money to buy a house. So we start there. We started with, let's take a look at what's really happening. And now let's take a look and see what choices you want to make based on the goals that you're choosing.
So very shame-free.
I don't think I ever felt ashamed at all during the whole process. Certainly not to a degree that stopped me in any way. But no, he never, and I'm sure that I cried probably for the first 3 months. And he was, he started doing this because he understood it, because he got it. He was the same way. So he was able to relate to my experience, and so many of his clients were coming to him because their spending was, out of control. And for me, I had grown up poor, very poor, not broke, poor, right? So when I became an independent adult, making the kind of money required to do the fun things, then all I wanted to do was to spend money so that I could do the fun things. I wanted to eat out. I wanted to buy clothes, right? I wanted to fit in. I grew up I have 2 older sisters, always wearing their clothes, and for me, a part of it was wanting to demonstrate physically that I was, well-to-do, especially as a brown person. I like to tell this story how if I go shopping at the mall, I won't go to the sale section because I don't want to be seen as a brown woman. I don't want to be seen at the sale rack. I want to be seen in Anthropologie or, Saks or Nordstrom. I want to be seen in the expensive sections where the expensive things are because I want other people to know that I can afford it because I can.
We're going to get right back to the conversation. If you're a therapist or healer who wants a more lucrative business model where you get to do what you love, but you don't have to be running session after session after session and still barely making enough money, I have an offer for you. I want to invite you to check out my 8-week program called Create Your Program. You're going to learn how to design and launch your own pilot program. If you don't know what that means, don't worry about it. I'm going to teach you all about how to do it. Head over to rebeltherapist.me/create to learn more. All right, let's get back to the episode. What's it like now when you, just like a small example that you gave, what's it like now when you see a Target? Like, how is it different or similar?
Target just doesn't have the power it used to have.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the laughing. People can't see it.
I used to go to Target at least once a week, and now my Target practice,
Your Target practice.
my Target practice is to go every time we run out of toilet paper. Now, I could just order off of Amazon.
Or this company who gives a crap.
Yes.
Good company. Anyway, yeah.
Exactly. So my Target practice is to go every time we run out of toilet paper, and we make a list, and I go and get the things, and it's almost always toiletries and cleaning supplies. And I spend somewhere between $100 and $150. And that happens about every 5 or 6 weeks. And that's it. So I probably live about the same distance I lived before. But there really isn't that draw. I really don't feel like, this is what it is. I don't feel like I need to spend money or go shopping to feel better about myself. Which I actually can't believe I'm saying that out loud.
Mm-hmm. What makes you feel like you can't believe you're saying it?
Because I was so, the sense of pride I got when I was making enough money to be able to shop when I wanted to shop, within reason. It's not like I was a millionaire or anything. had become a bit of a monster, right? At first it was, I think, a normal sized sense of pride, but eventually it became an ego. And so that my ego no longer lives in my ability to spend money. And, I actually, at the moment, don't make as much money as I was making back then. And it always used to be that if I wasn't making as much money, I felt like I wasn't worth as much. I wasn't as valuable as a member of society. But I don't feel that way now. There are all kinds of reasons why my income is lower now than it was then, and none of them have to do with how worthy I am.
Do you feel like you can see the transformation when you think about those first few months when you were working with that financial coach and you were making all these changes? Was there a pivot in there where you started to feel like, oh, this isn't what makes me valuable, or this isn't what, makes me enough?
No, there wasn't a pivot moment. There wasn't like the before and the after wasn't a moment. It wasn't overnight. I will say that within a couple of months, I felt I started to feel pride in a different way. My ego kind of got squashed down, and I became proud because I was making these choices, and I felt powerful because I was able to make them in alignment with what I wanted, right? So for all of this time, I was like, I want to buy a house. I want to buy a house. I want to buy a house. Oh my gosh, there's a target, right? And so it felt really crappy to be taking action that in a way that contradicted what I was saying that I wanted. So now I was actually able to say, I want this thing, and then do the things that were going to help me get there. That was huge. And it just took time. And I'll tell you, like, it's not like I'm perfect with my money now, but it's nothing like it was before. I still make impulsive decisions sometimes, but.
But overall, there's a big difference.
Yes. And it, and sometimes I might make an impulsive decision, but I budget in such a way that I have what I need to be able to make that impulsive. I can't make an impulsive decision and book a vacation, but I can make an impulsive decision to like pop into Banana Republic and buy a $300 dress.
Because you have that in your spending plan.
Yes.
Yeah. Nice. So the first stage was observe what you're already actually doing, and then look at how is this in alignment or not in alignment with what really matters to you.
Mm-hmm.
And then what was next? Like creating a plan, or like I'm finding myself avoiding the word budget, but I hear you're not avoiding that word. So then you made a budget?
Made a budget. Yeah. So we started to make a budget, and then we also started to track our net worth and our credit card, or just our debt in general. Net worth and debt.
Okay. And then as you're doing this, how is your partner feeling about it? Like, is she just super excited or
stoked?
Oh my gosh.
Stoked. She's stoked, right? Because so spending plan or budget, tracking net worth, developing a plan to get debt down, especially credit card debt, right? Revolving debt, and then envelope saving. So you need a budget. We use this app called Capital with a Q.
Okay.
So we were...
Capital?
Yeah, we usually call it Capital, but there's no U in there. So money comes out of our account, small amounts of money come out of our account every month and go toward different buckets of money to save for certain things, right? So there's our just general operating, family operating expenses, what we need just to pay all the bills. And then everything else, all of the other dollars are given a job. So one of the big things that we do is we save for Christmas every year. So we save a certain amount every month, and then December comes around and we have money for gifts. It's amazing. It's amazing. And then all that money goes away in December, and then January we start building it back up again, and we don't touch it. It just stays there.
Yeah. And you do that for everything, like property taxes, everything that I don't know how you do your property taxes. I don't know. I never want anybody telling me what to do. So I don't put it with my mortgage.
Well, we live in different states, so it might be set up in a different way, but taxes get paid with our mortgage.
Okay. So yeah, but everything that comes up from time to time, you're building it up throughout the year.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I can tell you we have a AAA membership. It's like $200, $300 a year, whatever. We save every month for that. So when it comes around, boom, it's right there.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. So so a pain point for a lot of people with something like Qapital or YNAB is like having to get into, this is what, like, whenever I talk to my friends about it and they're like, how do you do that? And I'm like, we put everything that we spend, like everything has to go into that system. And that's the part that they don't want to do. Like, they don't want to think about it that much. They don't want to have that extra chore. Was that a pain point for you too, or no?
No. And I think for me, because I'm a tactile person and I learn by doing, so I like sitting down once a month, and sometimes it's, a couple times a month or more. I like sitting down and going, okay, this is going to go over there, and this is going to go over here, and this is going to go over here. Like, to me, that helps build the muscle to actually physically sit down and do that thing, right? Just like I do my bookkeeping for my business once a month, I sit down and do our budget for the following month, every month, right? That I move money around. Now, our Qapital is automatic.
Mm-hmm.
But as I was telling you right before we got on this call, that I started the profit first model
for business finances.
For my business finances, and that's not going to be automatic. That's going to be sort of manually going in and going, okay, this is how much I made, and now I have to distribute these into these other accounts sort of manually, because the money I make every month changes.
Yeah. Oh, so you pay yourself a consistent amount from your business to your personal. Is that right?
I do not. I pay myself differently depending on what it is that I bring in.
Oh, okay. So how is Qapital? This is cracking me up, but I really like that. How is Qapital automated then, if it's a different amount every month?
Oh, okay. So Qapital is based off of what is fixed for us, right? So our Qapital is actually connected to our personal accounts. So my partner works for the government, so different from what I do. She works for the government, so she gets the same amount every paycheck, right? That's consistent. And actually, we can meet all of our needs on her paycheck, which we're very blessed to be able to do. So all of that is based off of her income. Anything that comes in on top of that usually then gets manually moved into something. And quite frankly, right now, it's credit card debt. Podge made extra money this month. What should we do with it? Let's pay credit card debt off. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So 2 things I want to make sure we get to talk about are you've hinted at it. You bought a house. So like what you actually accomplished. And then I also want to ask you, I guess I'll just ask you right now, like having this new liberation and intimacy with your money, knowing you can live on so much less, knowing you can put things towards these goals that matter to you. Has that changed the way you feel in your business about like what kinds of risks you can take or what kinds of investments you can make? I know this is a very leading question, but like when you make investments in a business and maybe pivot your niche or do a lot of the brave things you've done, there's this risk or this time in between when it might not work right away.
Yes. So I'll answer that one first because, so it's Thursday. On Monday of this same week, I opened up 5 bank accounts at my local bank down the street, and I live in the country, so they were highly amused by this. They were like, I'm sorry, you want to do what? You want to open 5 checking accounts? Do you have 5 businesses? No, I don't have 5 businesses. They were very confused. Anyway, so I did that on Monday, and then on Tuesday, I went into my old bank account, and I downloaded my statements from January, February, and March because I wanted to see where my spending had been. And I wanted to make sure that I wasn't signed up for something, because we all do this, some subscription that I wasn't using. And when I went through, there were only a couple of things. And I mean, you have a very hefty tech stack. Mine's not as big as yours, but I have a lot of tech in my business.
Yeah. And so you're talking about all your business expenses.
My business expenses, there were only a couple things on there and I'm talking like probably $30, $40 a month, that I was like, oh yeah, I could probably ditch those. So I was really happy about that. And I think because I've relearned how to spend money, that my business finances sort of, even though I wasn't applying that same learning that I got working with Dylan Snowden to my business, but I was in a more frugal mindset, right? So I wasn't really overspending. So that was that piece, just in terms of operational expenses. In terms of investing, making an investment, first of all, if I'm trying a new piece of tech, I don't buy I don't go for the 10 or 15% discount by buying it upfront for 12 months, because if I don't like it after 2 months, the little bit more that I would have spent is worth it for me, right? So I always make that decision. Let me try this out for a few months, and if I like it and I know that I'm going to be using it extensively, then great. My only exception is Notion. I pay for Notion annually, right? Because Notion is my business. That's what I do. Then throughout the year, I'm looking around, right? I'm looking at my business. I'm looking at what I'm doing, and I'm starting to think about what's missing. What do I need? And I start thinking about who I might want to work with or hire to fill that gap for me, or to fix this thing over here for me. And then toward the end of the year, based on what my income has looked like throughout the year, I know about what I'm going to be able to afford for the following year. So my revenue was very low last year, which was fine. It's just what it was. But it meant at the end of the year, I knew that I wasn't going to come into 2023 trying to buy some $15,000, $20,000 coaching program, right? That didn't make sense for the revenue that I was making. But I wanted to be able to work on my copywriting for my newsletters and my social media, and which really is just LinkedIn, for my website. And so I invested a much smaller amount of money, I think about $3,000, which I'm paying monthly, into Kelly Deal's culture making for copywriters. It does not roll off the tongue.
Culture makers.
Thank you. Copywriting for culture makers. That makes way more sense.
And you really thought it through. Like, I know I am in that program too, and you asked me about it, and you really thought through, I'm not going to buy everything. And I just love this. Like, I think we sometimes don't do this enough in a thoughtful way. Like, we sometimes do it in a panicked way, but you were doing it in this thoughtful way of like, I'm not going to do everything. I think this could be the right place for my investment, and let me think it through.
Exactly. I know, because I've been in business long enough, that if I, as an entrepreneur working pretty much solo, occasionally I'll hire contractors for things. If I'm making under about $250,000 a year, I should be doing everything myself. Over that, maybe I hire a part-time or a full-time person for something specific. But under that, I should be doing everything myself. So at this point, and I'm under that threshold, it doesn't really make sense for me to be purchasing a high-ticket one-on-one type of a program, right? Like working one-on-one with a coach for $20,000 doesn't make sense for me. But it does make sense for me to spend, $800 or $1,200 or $3,000 on something that is self-paced, because I like a self-paced course, or maybe cohort-based if that's my jam, because I've done that before, so that I'm actually in a space where I can learn the skill and I can do the thing. Because it doesn't, right? If I was making $500,000, yeah, I'd hire a copywriter, right? But if I'm bringing in $10,000 a month, $5,000 a month, then spending $300 a month learning how to copyright makes more sense. And that's kind of that's how I think about it, And because I sell a service and I know what my price point is, I know that certain kinds of businesses shouldn't be investing in me based on their revenue level. If you're making less than $50,000, don't spend $10,000 working with me. That doesn't make sense. If you're making over 150, or you're making 300, or you're making $500,000, yeah, sure. You can spend, $20,000, $30,000 on me over the course of a year. So those are the benchmarks that I'm thinking about. And you know what's really nice about that? Because I know that, I don't have any shame. I have lots of colleagues in this space who are making over $500,000 who do one-on-one coaching with people. But I don't need to feel ashamed because I'm not there. This is just where I am, And so I try to put my money into places that are going to give me the ROI that makes sense for me where I am in my business. And I try to, I invest in myself because I'm smart. And so I look for other smart people to teach me the things that I need to learn.
Yeah. So you're thinking about it in this beautiful way that's like sequentially. You're looking at where am I right now in my business instead of who's like above me and who's below me. It's like, it's just about where am I right now? What's the right level of investment, the right kind of investment for this moment?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ding, ding, ding. That's exactly it. And, I think that this is true for you as well. The people, the colleagues that I have met and become close to over the last 5 years in my business, some of them are in earlier stages of their business and are looking to me to help them understand where they might be going next. And I have colleagues who are in a more advanced stage in their business. And I'm looking to them and going, hey, like this is, you and I do this. I was like, hey, what do you do with your money? And you were like, oh, let me tell you, this is what you have to look forward to, right? And I think that is so important. I used to sing in choirs, and a good choir director will place people based on their skill level as a singer. So if you're really, really good, you're going to be in the way back. And if you're really not so good, you're going to be in the way front. And if you're kind of in the middle, like I always was, I had people who were in front of me that were usually below me, right? Because we'd be in rises. People below me who could hear me sing. So I was helping them sing better. At the same time, I had people behind me who were better singers than me. So I was able to hear what they were doing. And it's the same thing in my business, right? So we're talking about money today, but there are all different things that I need to learn in my business. And so I love to share these stories for other people who need to hear them. And I love to be around people at all different stages of their business so that we're really sharing that information.
Yes. Okay. So what did you accomplish that year financially?
That year, we paid off $25,000 in revolving debt. So credit card debt. It wasn't all of it, but it was the vast majority of it. And then we saved $55,000 in cash.
And was that for like an emergency fund?
That was for the down payment, which, by the way, we ended up not spending because we got a 0%. We got a first-time home. We got a construction loan because we bought a fixer-upper. Like really, really, we're still fixing it up.
Yeah, like you're really you're not like when some people like me, I say like I'm renovating my kitchen right now. No, I'm actually not. I'm paying.
Right, you're paying someone to come in and install. Yeah.
When I talk to you, you're always like, I was upstairs, like I can't remember, but building things, like actually building things with your hands. Yeah, amazing. Did you know like that you were open to that, or was that something that came to you during this process?
We knew that we were open to it, and we came into a really hot market that was favoring sellers. And I was pretty adamant about not overpaying for a house in a hot market. And so what we learned was that only 11% of home buyers are willing to do major renovations. So that's what we did. And people listening can't see this, but you can see, I'm actually upstairs in our house right now. You can see behind me a bunch of drywall. You can see this exposed beam. You see this skylight, and you can see these wooden floors here, right?
Yeah. Can I take a screenshot?
Yes.
Okay. Because that way I can put it in the show notes that you can find on the website, rebeltherapist.me/podcast. And so you can see like this beautiful beam and this skylight, this world that you created.
So I just found the video of this, but when we first bought this house, there was asbestos pouring in from the slanted ceiling right here.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah.
Yeah. So they actually took all of the rafters off this whole house, raised the knee wall, if you know what a knee wall is, congratulations, raised the knee wall about a foot, built new rafters and put a roof on, and then they all went home. So then we insulated, we drywalled, we mudded, we painted, we sanded 3 or 4 coats of paint off of this floor that you can see behind me and restained it and finished it. So this room that I'm in now a year and a half ago was like, didn't look like this at all. And we've done this in 3 rooms now. We've got a few more rooms to go. So yeah, we literally did all the work ourselves, which is, which for us was sweat equity. And because that $55,000 that we saved ended up not going toward the down payment, we were able to use that for all of the materials that we needed to buy to renovate the house.
So good.
So exciting.
Yeah. And in your day-to-day financial life, it sounds like you don't feel deprived.
No.
Is that true?
Yes. I mean, sometimes we have to say no to things.
But that feels okay.
Well, it feels okay because saying no to something is because we've already said yes to something else.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So you're seeing it more as I'm deciding between these two things.
Yes, exactly. Exactly, right? It's like, sure, we could, let's go off for a weekend, with friends somewhere and drop $1,000 or whatever. Do I have the cash to do that? Sure, I do. But if I say yes to that, then I compromise having to buy my son a plane ticket to come out and visit us this summer from California. So it's not, I don't feel badly, sure, would it be nice to go? It would. But I'd rather see my kiddo for a couple of weeks over the summer. That's way more fun for me.
Do you consider yourself part of the FIRE movement?
I don't know. What is the FIRE movement?
Financial independence, retire early?
No.
The community? No. Okay. You heard of that?
Yes, I have, but that's just a hard no. I'm not a young woman, Annie. I'm not an old lady, but I'm not a young woman. And I didn't get my first career job until I was about 34. It took me 6.5 years to graduate from university. I had my son at a very young age, and so I had part-time jobs and went to school part-time. Actually, I went to school full-time, but I had always multiple part-time jobs. So I didn't enter the workforce and open up my first 401k until I was in my mid-30s. So I'm not retiring early. I don't know that I want to retire early. I like working. I like what I do. I don't want to work 60 hours a week. I don't even want to work 40 hours a week, quite frankly. But I don't think I want to retire at 50, which isn't very far away. I don't want to retire. No, I don't think I even want to retire. What would I do? I don't know what I would do. I'd probably buy another house and fix it up, or try to
start another business.
Yeah, start another business. What am I doing? So yeah, no, I don't identify that way. Do you identify that way?
Not with the retire early. I'm already 51, so I'm like not early according to a lot of standards within the FIRE movement anyway. I really love the influence of like the person in that movement who I really follow is Paula Pant. And I really love the influence of the first part of that word, the financial independence part, which is so much really the way you're talking about making choices and not letting our money rule us, but rather letting it serve us.
I think that's right. We still have a lot of debt. My partner is just a couple of years away from debt forgiveness for her debt, which is super exciting. I have over $100,000 in student loans. I would love to pay that off in my working lifetime. I don't even want to wait. I don't want to do the 25 years and then whatever's left gets forgiven. I would like to get that down earlier. I would like to invest in real estate. I would like to invest in the market. I would like to, yes, financial independence. I would really like that, but I'm not that close to it at the moment. And I'm okay with that. It is what it is.
I feel like we're really talking about something you and I have talked about before, which is intimacy with our money, like being really kind of having a radically honest relationship with our money.
You mentioned this the other day and I brought it up with my partner and she was like, what's that? But to me, when you said that to me the other day, I really thought about it. And I think what I came to, at least initially, was the intimacy that I have with my money has to do with ridding myself of that shame and not comparing myself to where other people are financially, in their business, in their lives. Because then I'm not afraid of the money, right? I'm not afraid of the money. I'm not afraid of looking at my bank account. I'm not afraid of opening bills. Because even if things are tight, even when things get tight, which they do, I have a plan. And I love that. Really takes the stress off. And takes the stress off the relationship.
It takes away that second arrow too, right? Like that first arrow is whatever financial issue comes up, which can be difficult or challenging or stressful. But then that second arrow of us beating ourselves up or having shame or having like a whole shit show about it. It sounds like that's really not in there for you.
No, it really isn't, not anywhere near as much. And my feelings are just feelings, right? If I let my feelings dictate my thoughts and then I believe those thoughts, then I'm in trouble. So if I'm having feelings about something, I can just have the feelings. And we're sort of getting into a slightly adjacent topic here, but I don't automatically believe the thoughts I'm having when my feelings are strong. So then I can just wait until the feeling passes and I'm feeling something else. And then I can go, okay, what do you think now? And I can be like, well, the thing that you thought earlier was way off, And then I don't have to be impulsive, which was so my behavior before with money, was a lot around just being impulsive because I was uncomfortable with my feelings.
Thank you so much, Podge.
You're so welcome. This is amazing. Thank you.
Find out more about Podge Thomas at smallbusinesscopilot.io. I want to thank Cosmo Palms for editing this podcast. If you found this episode supportive, please share it with your favorite therapist or healer. That is absolutely how we reach more people. And thank you so much for listening. I'll see you next time.